ماذا يفيدك أن تسمى حافظا وكتاب ربك في الفؤاد تمزقا يا أمتي القرآن.
الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله الكريم وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وأمته وبارك وسلم تسليما كثيرا. أما بعد. We have started commentary on the 30th juz beginning with Surah Naba, and we had finished the first 16 verses of this surah. And the summary of it was that people are debating and confused, or perhaps in doubt about this day of judgment. Is it going to happen? Is it not going to happen? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala warned that it's only a matter of time before you know for real what is actually going to take place. And then for the next several verses, Allah Azza wa Jal mentions signs of His power and His ability to do what is seemingly impossible. And He directs our attention to the immediate world around us, to all the miraculous things taking place all the time that we take for granted. So He directs our attention towards these things to make us think that, could that really be possible? Is that really possible? It seems impossible, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put it together and is running it that way. So that Rabb, who can do all of those things, then you should be sure that He is also capable of resurrecting you. And He is also capable of holding everyone accountable. And He is also capable of creating something like Jannah and Jahannam. And He is also capable of having a day of judgment where every single human being and jinn is judged for all the things that they did. And this is where the discussion begins now. So after directing our attention to all of the miraculous events taking place in the cosmos, in the earth, and in the systems of the world, He says, look, إِنَّ يَوْمَ الْفَصْلِ كَانَ مِيقَاتًا. The day of Fasl is a fixed time. Fasl literally means to separate something, to cut something, to sever something. Munfasil is something that is separate from another. The word fasl here is used in the meaning of making a decision, passing a final decision. When there are many options of A and B and C and D, when A is separated from all of them, and that is what the decision is based on, then we say this is fasl. Now this option has been separated and deemed as the final option, after which there is none. So the day of decision making, the day of absolute decisions, Al-Fasl means there is no challenging that decision. There is no overturning it. So it is the day of final decisions. It is a miqat. And this is derived from the word waqt, time. It has an appointed time. It has a fixed time. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions this repeatedly in the Qur'an. When people ask, when is it? When is it going to happen? He says, وَمَا نُؤَخِّرُهُ إِلَّا لِأَجْلٍ مَعْدُودٍ. We're delaying it, but don't think that its time is unspecified. Its time is known in the ilm of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And when it comes, it can neither be delayed, nor can it be brought closer. It's going to happen when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has decreed for it to happen. So its time is fixed. Don't worry about it. You are not responsible for when it's going to take place. What matters more is when you depart from this world. You should be worried about that time. Because that time, you do believe in. Even if you don't believe in the existence of God, you do believe that your life is going to end. And as far as you're concerned, from that moment, your hereafter has begun. Man mata qamat qiyamatuhu. The person who dies, his qiyamah has begun. When the day of judgment takes place, it's just a matter of time after that. يَوْمَ يُنْفَخُ فِي الصُّورِ فَتَأْتُونَ أَفْوَاجًا. On that day, the horn will be blown. And this horn is something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given to His angel Israfil alayhi salam. And it's mentioned in numerous ahadith that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created him primarily for this task. And in one hadith, it even says that since he was created, he has been standing in position, his head is bowed, his feet are together, and that horn, he has it raised to his lips. He's waiting for the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to blow. And a hadith mentioned that when he starts blowing it, it's going to start with a dim sound, a dull sound, hardly noticeable. And then its intensity is going to gradually increase till it becomes noticeable, to the point where it becomes annoying, like a sound around you that it's bothering you. And then it will get louder and louder to the point where it will become painful. And then it will become unbearable. And its intensity will only continue to increase until no living thing will be able to tolerate it. The blast will be so loud, so intense and so powerful that people's hearts will burst. And all living things will die because of the severity of that blast. So it's a very serious thing that's going to happen. And it's going to sound the same to everyone. It's not like it's coming from one direction so you can move away from it. It's going to come from all directions. And then, after everything has ceased, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to wrap up this entire system. Because at the same time, the world is going to collapse. The earth as we know it will cease to exist. And people will be grouped. And that grouping will take place when that horn is blown the second time. So Allah says it's only a matter of time before the horn is blown and all of you are called and people will rise from their graves. كَأَنَّهُمْ إِلَى نُصُبٍ يُوفِضُونَ. They'll be rushing towards the direction that they are sent. And they will be grouped according to their deeds, not according to their ethnicities or their geographical placement in the world, but according to the type of person they were. So, the believers and all the different types of believers, each type will be grouped together. So, فَتَأْتُونَ أَفْوَاجًا. You will come in groups, in bands. وَفُتِحَتِ السَّمَاء فَكَانَتْ أَبْوَابًا. The skies will be opened. And what it means for the skies to be opened is that pathways, portals will be opened that have never been opened before. And from these pathways and portals, these gates, angels are going to come flooding down in the hundreds of thousands. These are angels specifically created and deputed for dealing with the affairs of Qiyamah. And before this, everything that you know will have ceased to exist. Allah says, take the mountains for example. These mountains will be moved from their place. وَسُيِّرَتِ الْجِبَالِ. the mountains will be displaced. And how is it going to happen? The earth is going to start to quake. And it's going to quake so violently that it's going to start tossing everything up. Take the example of a rug or a sheet that you take and you shake it. You see how it ripples? It jumps and it plunges, and then it jumps up and it plunges down, and like this, how the folds of it ripple so quickly and so violently. Imagine the surface of the earth moving like that. So, if there's any dust, any particles, any crumbs on that rug or on that sheet, the moment you shake it like that, everything goes flying off. Now imagine all of the things that we know in this world, like those little crumbs and little dust particles. That's what's going to happen. So it's going to shake, and even the most stubborn things that are clinging to that carpet or to that sheet, if you shake it hard enough, they're going to come out. So the earth is going to shake and shake and shake, and these mountains are going to become uprooted. And as we know, the depth of the mountains within the earth is greater and deeper than the height of the mountains above the earth, above the surface of the earth. So for the mountains to be uprooted is something we can't even picture. Something that's embedded so deeply into the ground. It's anchoring the earth, like we talked about in the previous lesson. So these mountains are going to become uprooted, and they're going to be thrown up, and they're going to come crashing down. And then they're going to be thrown up again, and then come crashing down. وَدُكَّتِ الْأَرْضُ وَالْجِبَالُ دَكًّا دَكًّا. These mountains are going to be pounded into the earth over and over and over again. So they're going to be pulverized until they become like pebbles, and then even then that heap of pebbles is going to be thrown up and down, and the violent shaking is not going to stop. إِذَا زُلْزِلَتِ الْأَرْضُ زِلْزَالَهَا. It's not going to be an ordinary earthquake. It's not something that can be measured on any scale. And this process will continue happening over and over and over again. فَكَانَتْ هَبَاءً مُنْبَثًّا. The Qur'an says, what was mountains, this mass of solid rock, is going to become a cloud of dust. وَتَكُونُ الْجِبَالُ كَالْعِهْنِ الْمَنْفُوشِ. Like someone takes this wool, a ball of wool, or think of a ball of cotton, and tears it apart, thread by thread, and just blows it away. It's gone, it disappears. And in one place, the Qur'an mentions, وَتَرَى الْجِبَالَ تَحْسَبُهَا جَامِدَةً. The person who will be present would think that these mountains are so solid. وَهِيَ تَمُرُّ مَرَّ السَّحَابِ. After they have been pounded and pulverized, it's become a cloud of dust, and they will be moving through the atmosphere like a cloud. تَمُرُّ مَرَّ السَّحَابِ. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَسُيِّرَتِ الْجِبَالِ فَكَانَتْ سَرَابًا. These mountains will be displaced and made to move, and they will become like a mirage. A mirage is when you look down the horizon and it appears that there's a body of water, a pool of water, a lake, an oasis, and so the thirsty person goes rushing towards it. When you get there, you find that this was just a trick that was being played on your eyes because of the particles in the air and because of your viewpoint. When you got there, there was nothing. The mountains will become like that. You saw it. All of a sudden, it's not there anymore. So you would think that maybe my eyes played a trick on me. Maybe there was no mountain there. فَكَانَتْ سَرَابًا. إِنَّ جَهَنَّمَ كَانَتْ مِرْصَادًا. Jahannam is lying in ambush. Mirsad is that hiding place that a hunter or an attacker uses to pounce on his prey suddenly and quietly. Where he is watching the prey, or he is watching his victim, the victim can't see him. And just when the time is right, he pounces on that prey and finishes him off. And that prey doesn't have a chance to respond. Similarly, Jahannam is lying in ambush just like somebody hides waiting for their enemy to attack them and finish them. Jahannam lies awaiting for those people that are going to be thrown into it. It sees them as its enemies. It sees them as people that it has been created to torment forever and ever. So it's waiting there. Be aware of it. And the term lying in ambush is used because we can't see it. We can't see it. But it is there. It is very real. لِلطَّاغِينَ مَآبًا. Who will end up there? Whose destination will it be? It will be for طاغين. And طغى means someone who does not restrain themselves. طغى, it means to go out of bounds, to go out of limits, to not maintain boundaries. A person who does not restrain themselves, then their ma'ab, their destination is going to be Jahannam. So, the hadith says that حُجِبَتِ النَّارُ بِالشَّهَوَاتِ وَحُجِبَتِ الْجَنَّةُ بِالْمَكَارِهِ. Jahannam is veiled. It's curtained from our eyes. What are the curtains? The curtains are desires. The things that appeal to us, the things that attract us, the things that appear very enjoyable to us. And when we look at these things, we get pulled and attracted to them. We don't know what lies behind them. We don't know that this is just a curtain. The moment we go forward, then this curtain is going to part and it's going to take us to what lies behind it. But we don't see them. There's this veil of beautiful, attractive things. And when we don't restrain ourselves, we lose ourselves in those attractive things, in those things that are appealing or they appear to be enjoyable. We lose ourselves and then we end up at what's behind them. Jannah has also been veiled. It's also been curtained from us. We cannot see it. What is covering it is inconveniences. We look at the inconveniences, so we pull back. That looks difficult. I don't know if I can do that. That seems very inconvenient. That seems uncomfortable. That will demand me to come out of my comfort zone, whether it's salat, whether it's siyam, whether it's paying my zakat, whether it's abstaining from one form of haram or another form of haram. It seems inconvenient. And the most convenient and appealing thing is to go ahead and do them and enjoy yourself. So, deen, it comes with a sense of discipline where our needs are identified, even our desires are identified, and we're given a scope. Within this scope, you can fulfill your needs and you can even fulfill your desires. Desires are not shunned. Desires exist within us. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created them within us. So the idea is not to finish off desires. The idea is merely to control ourselves while we're fulfilling them. And to do them within the scope, within the limits. And the limits are not that tight. The limits are actually quite broad. We actually have a lot of room to live life, even to enjoy life, even to have a good time in life. The limits are not so close to us that we're on a very, very difficult path. But there are boundaries. Canada is a huge country. It's massive. There is so much room to move around and travel and still be in Canada. You can be on mountains, you can be on lakes and rivers, you can be in fields, open fields, you can be in all kinds of terrain. You can be in the cold, you can be in the heat, and still be in Canada. But Canada also has borders. The moment you're out of those borders, you're no longer in Canada. Similarly, our deen has borders, has boundaries. It doesn't mean those boundaries are so narrow that you cannot live comfortably, and you cannot live as a functional human being, or you cannot enjoy your life. You can do all of those things. But when you lose all sense of restraint, and when one transgresses all of those boundaries and limits that are set by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then this is called tagha. This person has now gone out of bounds. So for a person who goes out of bounds, then their destination is going to be there. And what will happen? لَابِثِينَ فِيهَا أَحْقَابًا. There they will remain. So it's not just a destination that you go to and come out of. No, you'll have to stay there for ahqab. Ahqab is plural of huqb. And regarding huqb, there are a few different narrations from the Sahaba and the Tabi'is. Many of them have said that huqb is equal to 80 years of akhirah. 80 years of akhirah. And those 80 years are such that each day is equivalent to 1,000 years. So if a year has 365 days, then that's 365,000 years multiplied by 80. And according to the lunar calendar, there are 360 days. And according to other mufassirin, ahqab means forever. They will stay there till the end of time. In other words, they will stay there forever. Ahqaba. And that stay at this destination is not going to be a pleasant one. لا يذوقون فيها بردا ولا شرابا. It's going to be a place of intense heat. And intense is a severe understatement. Because some ahadith mention that the fire of Jahannam is 70 times more than the fire of this dunya. It's 70 times more intense. Sahaba said, O Prophet of Allah, even the fire of this dunya was enough to punish someone. What happens when a person gets burned? Imagine a fire that's 70 times more intense. And the problem with that fire is that its effects will remain fresh. It will not be that a person has been burned and scorched, so their nerve endings have died and now they can't feel it. No. كُلَّمَا نَضِجَتْ جُلُودُهُمْ بَدَّلْنَاهُمْ جُلُودًا غَيْرَهَا لِيَذُوقُوا الْعَذَابِ. The moment their skins get roasted, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala replaces it with a fresh layer of skin. So they can keep on tasting the punishment forever, just as it was in the first moment. So the pain stays fresh. In that intense heat, the most precious thing to a person will be coolness. To have a taste of coolness, a cool breeze, a cool wind, a cool drink, a cool sensation of any sort. Allah says, لا يذوقون فيها بردا. They will not experience anything cool. No coolness. ولا شرابا. And nothing to drink. إلا حميما وغساقا. The only thing to drink is hamim, which is the bubbling and boiling water of Jahannam. Water that has been boiled in that fire. And a hadith mentioned that these people will cry for years and years and years for a drink of water. And they will cry for years and years for something to eat. And after many, many years, the thorns of zaqum will be taken and shoved down their throats. وَطَعَامًا ذَا غُصَّةٍ. And these thorns, when they're shoved down their throat, they're going to get stuck. These are massive thorns. And when they get stuck, they're going to rip the inside of their throats. And they will not be able to dislodge them, to move them. Then they will scream and scream and scream for water, something to pass this down. And when that happens, the bubbling hot water of Jahannam will be poured over their faces, over their heads, through which the skin of their heads and their faces is going to melt. And as it seeps down into their mouths and down their esophagus, it's going to melt everything inside. وَسُقُوا مَاءً حَمِيمًا فَقَطَّعَ أَمْعَاءَهُمْ. It's going to rip their intestines to shreds. So that's one beverage that they will be given. And the other is ghassaq. And hadith explains that ghassaq is rivers, streams and rivers of the pus and blood flowing from the bodies of those that are being tormented. The purulence and the blood, all of that septic, toxic material is going to be flowing into streams and into rivers. And these are the two beverages that they will be given to drink. Either that bubbling water or this very, very disgusting and the stench of it, as one can imagine, will be unbearable. So punishment upon punishment. A person who consumed halal, who abstained from things like liquor, abstained from those things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prohibited in this world, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give them much better beverages and food in akhirah. And a person who does not restrain themselves and keep themselves within the limit of halal, and they indulged in those things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had forbidden, then this will be their outcome. May Allah save us. He says, jaza'an wifaqa. Don't be shocked and surprised. This compensation is in accordance to their deeds. It's not worse than what they used to do. Wifaqan, it's muwafiq. It coincides and suits and matches what types of things they used to do. For every misdeed in dunya, there will be a type of punishment designated in akhirah. Based on the type of misdeed that they used to commit, will be the types of punishments that are administered. Jaza'an wifaqa. This is why they say al-jaza'u min jinsil amal. That the compensation is of the same type as the deed. إِنَّهُمْ كَانُوا لَا يَرْجُونَ حِسَابًا. These people had no expectation of accountability. They had no concept of it. They thought that they're just here to live. They came here on their own and they can live as they please. And all of this was for no purpose. How could that be? How could Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who has not even created a blade of grass without purpose, could He create an entire race of humanity without purpose? إِنَّهُمْ كَانُوا لَا يَرْجُونَ حِسَابًا. They had no expectation and therefore no preparation of any account, of any hisab. And even when they were reminded with our verses, our signs, our commandments, our message, وَكَذَّبُوا بِآيَاتِنَا كِذَّابًا, they rejected them as lies. They said, this is all false. They rejected them in the worst way, repudiated them. They said, don't talk to us about this nonsense. These are fairy tales. These are things that your forefathers told you. These are fables that were passed down from the previous generations. These are scare tactics. You're just trying to control us and play with our minds. Someone says you're trying to limit our freedom. Someone will say you're trying to take humanity backwards. Somebody will say that you are impeaching and infringing such and such and such rights. They will say all kinds of things. وَكَذَّبُوا بِآيَاتِنَا كِذَّابًا. Allah says that as they were saying all of that, and as they continued doing whatever they did, وَكُلَّ شَيْءٍ أَحْصَيْنَاهُ كِتَابًا. We were computing and recording and gathering statistics. Ihsa literally means to gather statistics on everything. So it's not just facts, it's the statistics. Kitaba, in documentation. Every single thing is going to be documented. In fact, on the Day of Judgment, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will tell a person that here, وَنُخْرِجُ لَهُ كِتَابًا يَلْقَاهُ مَنْشُورًا. His book of deeds, his record of deeds will be produced, and he will be told, اقرأ كتابك. Read this. This is your book. You have written it. This is your life. Read it. كَفَى بِنَفْسِكَ الْيَوْمَ عَلَيْكَ حَسِيبًا. You, by yourself, can decide where you should go. Look at what this is filled with. And they will say, مَا لِهَذَا الْكِتَابِ. What kind of book is this? لَا يُغَادِرُ صَغِيرَةً وَلَا كَبِيرَةً إِلَّا أَحْصَاهَا. It doesn't leave any minor detail, any major detail, any minor act, any major act. It covers every single thing. وَوَجَدُوا مَا عَمِلُوا حَاضِرًا. And whatever they did will be present in front of them. So this is that evidence taking and evidence recording mechanism of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through the angels that does not leave out anything. As far as people of dunya are concerned, it's very easy to put up a front or a presentation for people and present ourselves in a certain way. We can present ourselves as pious, we can present ourselves as honest, we can present ourselves as whatever we choose. We create an image, we can live by that image and give people certain impressions. But nothing hides, nothing is concealed from that book. In that book, it's the realities. It's not the impressions and the images. That's why Imam Shafi'i rahmatullah alayhi used to say that everyone should have a good share, a good portion of worship and good deeds that no one knows about. Nobody knows about. He says because as far as those deeds of ours that are visible to people, there's a very good chance that they may go to waste. Just because shaitan constantly plays with our intention. Sometimes, even when we go to do something with the right intention, the intention slowly changes, it becomes ostentatious. Just the fact that somebody else is watching, or the fact that people will acknowledge that I did this, or the people will know that I did this, sometimes that is enough to mess up our mind. And gradually, slowly, the leading thought in our mind is that this is what people are going to see me do. So something that started out as a sincere action ends up as something else. So he says you should make sure you have a good portion of deeds that no one knows about, because those are the deeds in which really it's much easier to maintain your sincerity. So they will be told that everything that you did has been well documented. فَذُوقُوا. And this verse number 30 of this surah, has been deemed by many mufassirin as the most frightening verse in the Qur'an. And it is a very, very frightening verse. فَذُوقُوا. Taste. Go ahead and taste it. فَلَن نَزِيدَكُمْ. From today, the only thing we are going to increase is the torment. فَلَن نَزِيدَكُمْ إِلَّا عَذَابًا. the only thing that's going to increase for you from this day on is your punishment. Can you imagine a punishment that starts out as devastating and only gets worse from there? And it will continually get worse. So this is the summary of what will happen to that group of people who did not restrain themselves, who did not control themselves. They went out of bounds and they transgressed the limits of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now the Qur'an, as we mentioned in previous talks of this series, the Qur'an is called Mathani. Mathani means that things are paired in it. So where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about a subject, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also speaks about the counterpart to that subject. So when He talks about good people, He also talks about bad people, and vice versa. And when He speaks about Jannah, He speaks about Jahannam, and vice versa. And when He speaks about punishment and torment, He also speaks about bounties and favors. And that's exactly what happens here. Leaving us on this very, very tense and frightening note, all of a sudden the theme changes. Because the point is not to throw people into a state of fright, to render them helpless and hopeless. The point is not to make people give up hope. Like, you know what, this is where you're headed, and that's it, and there's nothing you can do about it, and it's this bad and this bad, and that's not the point. The point is to warn. And that warning is given out of love and affection for mankind, so that doesn't become their outcome. If that was the desired outcome from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He would not be giving us all these warnings. So the vivid descriptions, and sometimes even the grotesque descriptions of what will happen to people, this is not to throw us into a state of hopelessness. This is to wake us up and put us in tune with the realities that lie ahead. And then here the tone changes completely. But these are not the only people, and this is not the only fate, and this does not have to be your destination. Inna lil muttaqina mafaza. There is another group of people. The first was Taghin. These were the people who went out of limits. There is another group of people who are the muttaqeen. And muttaqeen, the word taqwa, it is derived from the root waqa. And waqa, waw, qaf, ya, it means to protect yourself, to defend yourself. There's a common saying that al-wiqayatu khayrun min al-ilaj. Prevention is better than cure. So, to save yourself, to protect yourself, and taqwa is actually a shield that a person uses to defend themselves and save themselves from those things that lead to the displeasure of Allah. Once, Umar radiallahu anhu asked Ubay ibn Ka'ab radiallahu anhu to explain taqwa to him. This is Amir al-Mu'mineen, Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu. But Ubay ibn Ka'ab was a great alim of the Qur'an, and he was a great qari, and he was very close to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So he said, I want you to describe this. So Ubay ibn Ka'ab radiallahu anhu described it with an example. He said, Amir al-Mu'mineen, have you ever gone down a very narrow path that has thorny bushes on both sides? He said, yes. And he said, it was so narrow that you're scared that the thorns are just going to, catch you. He said, yes. So he said, then how did you walk? How did you cross that path? He said, shammartu wajtahadtu. He said, well, the first thing is that I rolled up my sleeves and I put my clothes in so that they don't catch on the thorns. And then I was very, very careful. He said, that's taqwa. When you have the impermissible temptations, when you have things that might not necessarily be haram, but they're leading towards haram. They're things that are not necessarily impermissible, but they're disliked. Your ultimate goal is to avoid. Taqwa means to avoid, to save yourself from what? From the displeasure of Allah. Now everything you do with that state of mind, with that awareness, I don't want Allah to be displeased, I don't want Allah to be displeased. Whatever you do to save yourself from that, it's all taqwa. And taqwa is a very powerful thing. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala explains to us the fruits of taqwa in this world. Here, He's talking about what we get in akhirah. But the Qur'an explains what we get from taqwa here in this dunya. In the 28th juz, in Surah Al-Talaq, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمَنْ يَتَّقِ اللَّهَ يَجْعَلْ لَهُ مَخْرَجًا وَيَرْزُقْهُ مِنْ حَيْثُ لَا يَحْتَسِبُ. The first thing that happens when a person becomes pious, we use the term pious for muttaqi. It's a general term, it's not a very precise or accurate translation. But a person who saves themselves, constantly saving themselves from the displeasure of Allah, like the person who's trying to save their clothes from those thorns and their skin from those thorns, the first thing that happens is Allah creates avenues and ways for them, exits from their problems. A person could be surrounded in all kinds of difficulties, problems, hard times, and there seems to be no exit from it. Allah creates an exit for him. Allah makes one for him. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala starts providing him from places that he could not even imagine. This is here in dunya. This is a reward in dunya for taqwa. And then up ahead, he says, وَمَنْ يَتَّقِ اللَّهَ يَجْعَلْ لَهُ مِنْ أَمْرِهِ يُسْرًا. A person who adopts this taqwa, this quality of taqwa, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala starts making all his affairs easy for him. Those same things that people are beating their heads over and still not getting it, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give it to him with such ease. He will not even know how it's happening, or she will not even know how it's happening. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala starts facilitating all of their affairs, all of their needs, and removing all of their problems, and removing obstacles, and doing all kinds of things for them. And the Qur'an, many other things are promised as well. But in this group of verses, the first one was creating exits out of problems. The second one was making things easy. And then the third thing is, وَمَنْ يَتَّقِ اللَّهَ يُكَفِّرْ عَنْهُ سَيِّئَاتِهِ وَيَعْظِمْ لَهُ أَجْرًا. Allah will continue to forgive and expiate your sins and will give you immense reward. That's for akhirah. But the fruits of taqwa are obtained here in this dunya first. Khair. Allah says, إِنَّ لِلْمُتَّقِينَ مَفَازًا. For those who have taqwa is a great success. Mafaz can mean success itself, or it can mean a place of success, a place of eternal success. Mafaz. Because the Qur'an says, فَمَنْ زُحْزِحَ عَنِ النَّارِ وَأُدْخِلَ الْجَنَّةَ فَقَدْ فَازَ. A person who is removed, distanced from Jahannam and entered into Jannah, he has succeeded. So Jannah is the place of success, the place for successful people, the place where successful people end up. So who will get that? The people of taqwa. And taqwa is the exact opposite of the taghin, what they're doing. حَدَائِقَ وَأَعْنَابًا. They will have these massive gardens and orchards to wander about and spend their time. And in these orchards, they will have every type of fruit, grapes, dates, whatever they want. There it's going to be based on what you like, what your preferences are. So whatever a person desires, they're going to get it. One Sahabi came to the Prophet ﷺ and he said, "O Prophet of Allah, I love camels. So will I get camels in Jannah?" That was his passion. So Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam says, yes, Allah will give you camels and they'll have wings. One Sahabi says, oh Prophet of Allah, I love gardening. Okay, somebody with a green thumb. I love gardening. Will I have a chance to garden in Jannah? So the Prophet ﷺ said, yes. You just have to wish and the seeds will be sown and the crops will bloom by themselves. It's all personalized to you, to your tastes. There is no right or wrong. There is no good way to do it or bad way to do it. It's just what you like. وَلَكُمْ فِيهَا مَا تَشْتَهِي أَنفُسُكُمْ وَلَكُمْ فِيهَا مَا تَدَّعُونَ. Whatever you want, whatever you like, whatever you desire, and whatever you ask for, it's yours. So حَدَائِقَ وَأَعْنَابَ وَكَوَاعِبَ أَتْرَابَ. For men, such wives that will have shapely figures and will be of the same age as them. وَكَأْسًا دِهَاقًا. Goblets, vessels that are always full. Dihaq, something that is filled to the brim. And the Qur'an talks about the different types of things that they will have to drink. They will have honey to drink. They will have milk to drink. They'll have water to drink. They'll have wine to drink. And there will be many different types of wine. And there will be many different types of rivers and streams flowing. And every one of them is going to be created just for the drinking pleasure of these people. So the milk of Jannah is not going to come from the udders of cows or camels or goats. It's going to be called milk. It's not going to come from any animal. The wine is not going to come from grapes or from other fruits or things. It's going to be called wine, but it's going to be created by Allah for the pleasure of these people. The honey is not going to come from the bellies of bees. It's going to be called honey, but it's something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created. Same thing, the water is not going to be coming from the rain or from the mountains or from bodies of water. Allah is going to create it and put it in these rivers. And these rivers will flow wherever these people want them to flow. In any direction, the rivers will move according to their instructions. So those cups will always be full. وَكَأْسًا دِهَاقًا. And the gatherings of Jannah, لَا يَسْمَعُونَ فِيهَا لَغْوًا وَلَا كِذَّابًا. There, in those gatherings, there will be no vain talk. And there will be no lies, no untruths, no exaggerations, nothing that contradicts haqq. So in another place, there is no lahu there and there is no ta'theem. There is nothing that is said in Jannah that would constitute a sin. There's no backbiting. There's no harsh words. There's no admonishment. There's no getting angry at someone. There is no such thing. إِلَّا قِيلًا سَلَامًا سَلَامًا. Words of peace. Words of peace. And they'll be doing the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The one amal, the one good deed that remains, even in Jannah, is the dhikr of Allah. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says that يُلْهَبُونَ التَّحْمِيدَ وَالتَّسْبِيحِ كَمَا تُلْهَمُونَ النَّفَسِ. They'll be doing the dhikr of Allah just as naturally as you people breathe in this dunya, without even thinking about it. So the conversations will be beautiful, the conversations will be enjoyable, and the majalis, different types of majalis will take place, different types of gatherings will take place. Jaza'an min rabbik. All of this is a compensation from your Lord. This is a gift. This is a compensation. You put up with inconveniences. You put up with difficulty. You put up with things that were uncomfortable. And sometimes you put up with difficulties. Sometimes you endured tests, trials, and problems. of different sorts. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was calculating all of that. He was calculating it. He was counting it. And today, it is عَطَاءً حِسَابًا. This is the gift of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala based on the accounts that He kept for you. So their good deeds not only overpowered their bad deeds, but they had won the favor of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And they had won the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so their hisab was very different from the hisab of those people. Which Allah? رَبِّ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَمَا بَيْنَهُمَا الرَّحْمَنِ. The Lord, we talked about Rabb in some detail during Surah Al-Fatiha. The Rabb of the heavens and the earth and whatever lies between, and Ar-Rahman, the most beneficent, the one whose mercy overwhelms and overpowers everything, the one whose mercy is vaster than all of the sins of humanity combined. But even so, لا يملكون منه خطابا. When they stand in front of Him on that day, no one will have the power to address Him. No one will have that power. يوم يقوم الروح والملائكة صفا لا يتكلمون. Even Jibreel and all the angels will be standing in rows. لا يتكلمون. Even they will not have the audacity to speak in the court of Allah while these decisions are being passed. إلا من أذن له الرحمن. Only those will be allowed to speak whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant permission to speak. And that also with the condition, وَقَالَ صَوَابًا, what they say is haqq, what they say is the truth. ذَلِكَ الْيَوْمُ الْحَقِّ. That is the true day, in front of which the days of this life, this worldly life, will seem like a dream. They will seem like it didn't really happen. That's why people will be asked, كَمْ لَبِثْتُمْ فِي الْأَرْضِ عَدَدَ سِنِينَ. How long did you live? They'll say, لَبِثْنَا يَوْمًا أَوْ بَعْضَ يَوْمٍ. A day, a part of a day? We don't know. فَاسْأَلِ الْعَادِينَ. Ask the people who kept track. It happened so fast, we couldn't even keep track of it. So imagine a life that at that time, in retrospect, will seem so brief and so quick. It will appear like nothing in front of this day. And that's the day when people will wish that they had sacrificed everything for that day. They had sacrificed everything for that day. And they will wish that they had not sacrificed that day for this life that will seem like a day or a part of a day. فَمَنْ شَاءَ اتَّخَذَ إِلَىٰ رَبِّهِ مَآبًا. If you want, whoever wants, Allah says, the doors are open. فَمَنْ شَاءَ اتَّخَذَ إِلَىٰ رَبِّهِ مَآبًا. Whoever wants can take his destination with his Lord. Where do you want to be? You want to be with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or you want to be in the other place? Allah says, if you want, you can come and stay in my place under my hospitality. إِنَّا أَنذَرْنَاكُمْ عَذَابًا قَرِيبًا. Allah says, look, we have warned you of a punishment that is impending, a punishment that is not far away. It's not far. It might seem distant, but it's not distant. إِنَّهُمْ يَرَوْنَهُ بَعِيدًا. People think it's very far away, Allah says. وَنَرَاهُ قَرِيبًا. Allah says, I am seeing it. It's right here. It's right in front of you. Allah says, look, I've warned you. And inzar is not to frighten. Takhweef means to frighten. Inzar means to warn. You warn someone that you want to help, that you want to save. You warn a child that the stove is hot because you don't want them to burn their hand. Allah says, I warned you of this. يَوْمَ يَنْظُرُ الْمَرْءُ مَا قَدَّمَتْ يَدَاهُ. At that time, a person will look at whatever they have forwarded, whatever they have sent ahead in terms of their deeds. They will see it all in front of them. وَيَقُولُ الْكَافِرُ يَا لَيْتَنِي كُنْتُ تُرَابًا. And the one who came with no belief, the one who ended up in the court of Allah without any iman, then he will say that I wish I was dust. I wish I was dust. In other words, I wish I never existed. I wish I did not have to be resurrected here. And in some ahadith it's mentioned that on the Day of Judgment, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will have every act of injustice that was done in this world, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will have it compensated. He will give compensation to the one who was hurt or harmed or wronged. So much so that if a horned goat stabbed, poked a goat that had no horns, and thus was unable to defend itself, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will recreate both of them and take the horns away from this one and give horns to this one and give him a chance to gore the other one, just like he did in this dunya. And then all of this is called the process of qisas, of retribution. Once all of the retributions have been settled, animals, of course, they're not going to go to Jannah, they're not mukallaf of deeds. They're not legally responsible for deeds. So once the retributions have been settled amongst the animals, they'll be turned to dust and they'll be finished. So that person who appears on the Day of Judgment without any faith, without any belief, he will be seeing this and he will wish, I wish I was one of those animals also, that my account would be settled and I would be turned into dust and I didn't have to see what comes after this. So this is a brief explanation of Surah Naba, the first surah of the 30th juz. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us the ability to understand it and to reflect on it whenever we come across it, and keep these lessons in mind throughout not just our prayers but throughout our lives. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us all the ability to take our destination with Him. Subhanallah.